Hi, I'm Cassie Mellon, the Aquatic Resources Program Lead for Utah BLM. Tess, Webb, and I are going to be talking with you today about the BLM AIM strategy, specifically riparian and wetland AIM monitoring in the Grand Staircase-Escalante National Monument. I'm hoping at least some of you have heard of BLM's AIM monitoring program before, and we're excited to be here and talking more about it for the newest resource that we're able to monitor with it, which is riparian and wetland habitats. I'm going to give a little background on the AIM strategy and the other resources it covers before going over what types of habitats the riparian and wetland protocol covers, as well as the different indicators we monitor with it. Then Tess is going to show some of the data that has been collected already, how we can evaluate it, and some directions we're looking at going for monitoring and assessment of this important habitat in the future. The AIM strategy began to be implemented in 2011 with the objective of providing a standardized approach for measuring the natural resource condition and trend on BLM land. The AIM strategy provides quantitative data and tools to guide and justify policy actions, land uses, and adaptive management decisions. AIM provides standardized field methods to allow comparisons throughout BLM land and in collaboration with partners. A key component of the AIM strategy is that we want the data to be publicly available. Data for all resources can be found at this link, or if you don't have time to capture that link, you can search for BLM AIM data and the site will come up. Standardized monitoring protocols have been developed to monitor conditions in terrestrial, lotic, and riparian wetland habitat types. All of these protocols have been developed with the support of university-based science partners for each resource. This has been a valuable partnership to ensure that methods, sample design, analysis, and the whole process are done in a scientifically rigorous way. I want to quickly go over terrestrial and lotic AIM and what data is available. Terrestrial AIM is the most extensive data set with more than 550 points in and around the Grand Staircase-Escalante area. Some of the indicators that are collected include bare ground, vegetation composition, plant species of management concern, non-native invasive species, and percent canopy gap. Lotic AIM, or monitoring of flowing water habitats, began in 2013. And in and around the monument, we have 45 sites, some of which have been revisited multiple times. Lotic AIM measures a 150-meter or greater reach of stream with 11 main and 10 mid-transects, where the majority of the data is collected. The indicators that are collected include measurements of the physical, chemical, and biological properties of the stream. One indicator I want to point out that is quite different in how we collect it in lotic versus riparian and wetland AIM is the riparian vegetation component of lotic AIM. On both sides of the bank at each of the 11 main transects, we evaluate a 10 by 10 meter plot. Crews are provided and trained on a list of priority noxious vegetation and priority native woody vegetation. In each plot, they record the presence or absence of these species. This is intended as a quick assessment, not a quantitative vegetation survey, and is meant to flag potential species of interest for specialists to revisit and collect more data as needed. Now, to get into riparian and wetland AIM, which, since this habitat is where land and water meet, it combines some aspects of both the terrestrial and lotic monitoring protocols. Riparian and wetland AIM began in the monument in 2020, and we currently have collected data at 11 sites. One thing I want to point out before I talk too much more about riparian and wetland AIM is how the sites are selected. With terrestrial and lotic AIM, we use a mix of targeted and random site selection. For that random site selection, you need a comprehensive and consistent data set to select your points from. The good thing about this is when you randomly select points, you have statistical power to make inference to the larger landscape those points were pulled from. This can be a challenge though, because large national data sets can be inaccurate. For riparian and wetland habitats, we have the National Wetlands Inventory, which is a national data set, but in Utah at least is very inaccurate. We tried a random sample design from it one pilot year, and the crews spent the majority of the time rejecting sites that weren't really wetlands. So we decided that until it was updated, this wasn't a very good use of anyone's time. It is being updated, but for now, we are only selecting targeted sites. So we're choosing where we want to sample. This is good in that it gives people with local knowledge of what they're interested in monitoring some flexibility on where to send the crews to collect the data. But it does not give us any statistical ability to make inference beyond the sites that we've collected data at. There is a wide range of habitats that this protocol covers, from wet meadows to riparian forest, springs, playas, and everything in between. I'm just going to quickly show some examples of types of sites that have been sampled in the monument. So you can see this is a very small site, and it's a vegetated slope drainage way from a seep or a spring. This is a larger and drier site, more woody vegetation. It's a riparian shrubland, and there's a developed spring source here. And then this is a larger site, a wet or mesic meadow, likely from a regional groundwater spring. So from those pictures, you can see there's a range of sizes and types of habitats that can be sampled. So there was a need for some flexibility in the layout of how the data is collected. Riparian and wetland sampling requires 3 25-meter transects on which vegetation data is collected. Ideally, that would be in a spoke layout, or this round layout, which is what the terrestrial AIM uses. But modifications are made to account for a range of sizes and shapes of this habitat. The methods that are collected focus on the hydrology, soils, and vegetation features of the site, and are grouped into covariates that describe the type of system, core indicators that are the quantitative vegetation measurements, and contingent indicators that may or may not be collected. Now I'm going to turn it over to Tess to discuss some of the applications and uses of the data. Tess Webb is an aquatic ecologist with Colorado Natural Heritage Program and has been working with us on the implementation and analysis of lotic and riparian and wetland AIM data.
Thanks, Cassie. So from all of the various methods carried out during data collection, we can and have calculated over 100 indicators. I'm going to highlight a handful of indicators of interest over the next few slides that can aid in understanding conditions on the ground. The picture on the right is a riparian shrubland plot sampled in 2021 near Sheep Creek in the Grand Staircase. The plot had relatively high foliar cover, which we typically hope to see in these highly productive ecosystems, as opposed to seeing higher percent bare ground. Hydrophytic species are those rated as obligate or facultative wet, and they indicate how frequently the site is either flooded or saturated. It's a good indicator for assessing maintenance of soil moisture characteristics and groundwater depth. So from this example plot, we can look at non-native species cover. We can also pull out the cover of specific species of interest or concern, such as something like Russian olive. All these indicators are incredibly valuable for understanding specifics within a given plot. There is need to put these values into greater context to better quantify condition. To do so, we are exploring grouping similar wetland types and life forms as we would expect differences between something like a wet meadow dominated by herbaceous species compared to a riparian shrubland dominated by woody species. As this program has continued to grow, there are more riparian and wetland plots that we can start to look at comparisons across greater areas with similar ecosystem characteristics. So for example, we can look at values across all riparian and wetland plots in the Colorado Plateau to similar wetland types within the Grand Staircase region. All of this not only aids in understanding conditions, but helps in the development of setting benchmarks, which BLM can use to determine if they are meeting their land health standards. So, for example, in this map, we can see the range of percent native species cover for all riparian and wetland plots sampled across the Colorado Plateau, with the lighter green points showing lower native species cover and the darker green higher percent cover. We can then visualize the range of conditions within the Grand Staircase, which here generally showing higher percent native species cover. We can also start to look specifically at where riparian and wetland plots in the Grand Staircase fall within that distribution of observed indicators across the Colorado Plateau. So as another example, the box plot on the left shows the distribution of hydrophytic species cover for herbaceous dominated riparian and wetland plots, with the green triangles indicating Grand Staircase specific plots. While values varied across the Grand Staircase plots, one of the plots with the photo on the right had some of the highest hydrophytic species cover across all plots sampled in the Colorado Plateau. And conversely, when looking at noxious species cover across the Colorado Plateau, one of the sampled Grand Staircase plots on the right had some of the highest noxious species cover, largely from Russian olive. By continuing to explore the data in this way, we can start to better understand conditions and prioritize areas in need of protection or restoration. In addition to understanding conditions within riparian and wetland areas, this data can also begin to provide further context for other aquatics-related data. As Cassie had mentioned before, Lotic AIM assesses in-stream habitat and near bank areas, but doesn't adequately assess the floodplain areas that are equally as important. Our ability to pair riparian and wetland plots with Lotic AIM reaches gives us a greater picture of the conditions of streams and adjacent riparian areas, and in a region like Grand Staircase, a more comprehensive understanding of our canyon bottoms. While we haven't paired these plots in Grand Staircase just yet, I wanted to highlight an example from the Moab area. So on the left is a photo of the channel and near bank area from a sampled Lotic AIM reach, and on the right is a paired riparian and wetland AIM plot sampled on the floodplain. When we combine the data from both, we have a greater understanding of conditions that neither one could show alone. The stream is relatively incised, which can be seen both in the floodplain connectivity data, but also in the low hydrophytic species cover, indicating infrequent inundation and saturation. We can also look at the higher percent annual cover, which could indicate lower stability of the stream banks as seen in the Lotic AIM data. In addition, we can track stream habitat indicators alongside priority non-native and noxious woody species for restoration potential and restoration understanding effectiveness, which is exactly what one of the paired riparian and wetland plots was aiming to do. From establishing plots where tamarisk removal began, we can track effectiveness of the treatment for the floodplain area and hopefully then continue to see those changes within the stream reaches themselves. We're really excited about the momentum of the Riparian and Wetland AIM program and its growth thus far. Specifically in Grand Staircase, we hope to continue to expand data collection across a wide range of systems. We think this program also has the potential for interagency collaboration as the protocol was intended. In other states, there are examples of the Forest Service implementing this protocol in addition to BLM. As we continue to explore the data in context and better understand condition, We're also very interested in sampling known areas with minimal anthropogenic disturbance to aid in benchmark development, which we hope we could collaborate with all the folks in this room on identifying some of those areas. And beyond, we hope that this could be a tool to aid in prioritizing restoration areas, but also in tracking their effectiveness. And that's all. We want to say thank you to the folks at Colorado Natural Heritage Program who have helped with the development and implementation of this program, as well as contacts and information for Lindsay Reynolds, who is the Riparian and Wetland AIM lead at the National Operations Center. Thanks.